I pulled into the gravel driveway of my lakeside cabin, expecting the familiar hush of pines and the glint of Lake Serenity's water. Instead, I found a sleek black SUV parked in my spot, lights blazing inside my home despite my absence for weeks. My gut twisted something was wrong. I'm Ethan Hayes, a 34-year-old freelance interior designer who poured 8 years of savings into this retreat, a sanctuary for my work and peace. A last-minute client delay in Chicago gave me an unexpected break, so I drove for hours not to unwind. What I found was a nightmare that made me question reality itself. As I approached the cabin, movement inside caught my eye, not the chaotic rummaging of a burglar, but deliberate, professional rearranging. Unlocking the door, I stepped into a scene straight out of a luxury real estate shoot. A woman in her early 40s, dressed in a tailored blazer and wide-brimmed hat, was staging my living room like a magazine spread. Fresh orchids sat in vases I didn't own, plush throw pillows adorned my warm couch, and a high-end camera on a tripod aimed at the lake view. She was transforming my rustic haven into a polished fantasy. When she noticed me, she didn't flinch. "Oh, Ethan," she said, as if we were old pals, "you're back early. I'm just sprucing up your place." She introduced herself as Laura Bennett, president of the Serenity Shores Homeowners Association, claiming she was optimizing my property's potential. Before I could process her audacity, she flashed her phone, showing a listing for Serenity Lake Retreat at $450 a night, complete with bookings and glowing reviews. My cabin, my memories, were for sale. "This is my house," I stammered, struggling to keep calm. "You have no right to be here, let alone rent it out." Laura's laugh was sharp, patronizing. "Ethan, you clearly haven't read the community bylaws. When a property sits unused, the HOA can manage it to boost neighborhood value." Her confidence made me doubt myself for a split second. Had I missed some fine print? But I'd scoured every document when I bought this place. There was no HOA. She was either delusional or running a scam, and her professional setup screamed the latter. Then she escalated things in a way I never saw coming. Without breaking eye contact, she dialed 911. "I'm at 1247 Serenity Drive," she said coolly. "There's a trespasser on a property I'm managing. He's agitated, and I'm concerned for my safety." I stood frozen in my own living room, listening to this stranger paint me as the intruder. This wasn't a misunderstanding, was a calculated heist. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Laura's smile turned icy. "Ethan, did you think showing up would ruin my plans? I've been ready for this." Her words dripped with certainty, hinting at a rehearsed playbook. When Deputy Carter arrived, Laura was the picture of composure, greeting him with a handshake and a leather portfolio bursting with official-looking papers. She spun a tale of managing my abandoned cabin for 3 months under HOA authority, producing a property management form, bylaws, and a business card naming her as community manager. I had my keys and driver's license, but my deed and mortgage papers were locked in a Chicago bank, inaccessible until Monday. To Deputy Carter, it was a he-said-she-said civil dispute. "Ethan, you'll need to leave until you can prove ownership," he said, his tone weary. "Laura, no changes to the property until this is resolved." It was a reasonable call for him, but for me, it was a gut punch. As I packed a bag, Laura watched from the deck, her victory pose barely masked. "Property transitions are tough, Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "But you'll see this benefits everyone." Her parting shot stopped me cold. The last owner struggled too, but he came around. The last owner. Was I just the latest mark in her game? That night, in a dingy motel, I scoured the internet for traces of Laura Bennett or Serenity Shores HOA. I found vague references to a community but no official records. The more I dug, the clearer it became. Laura's operation was a house of cards built on lies. Sunday morning, a knock on my door changed everything. Margaret Cole, a weathered woman in her 50s, stood there with a thick manila envelope. "I'm your neighbor," she said. "Laura's done this before, and you're not her first victim." Over coffee, Margaret laid out Laura's history: a failed Minnesota resort shut down for illegal dumping and fraud, followed by her arrival at Serenity Shores 2 years ago. She targeted absent owners, creating fake HOAs with polished websites and documents. Margaret showed me Profa software developer 3 lots down lost his cabin the same way, worn down by legal chaos until he sold at a loss to Laura's investors. "She's not just stealing homes," Margaret said. "She's building a resort portfolio to sell for millions." The kicker: Laura was constructing an illegal floating platform on my property, dumping chemicals into the lake. Photos showed oil slicks and dead fish. "This is what got her in Minnesota," Margaret said. "She always overreaches." I knew I needed hard evidence to stop her. Monday, I swallowed my pride and called Laura, pitching a partnership. "Let's work together," I said, playing to her greed. She bit, inviting me to the cabin that afternoon. What I saw was staggering. Crews were building a massive floating lounge, not just a deck but a commercial takeover. Power tools lay near open fuel cans, and a chemical film coated the water. Laura beamed. "This will triple your property's value, Ethan." Private dinners on the lake resort prices for a cabin. I played along, suggesting lighting ideas while secretly reactivating my old security cameras. From my phone, I recorded her every move. When I asked about permits, she laughed. "Forgiveness is easier than permission. By the time regulators notice, we'll be done." Her arrogance was my jackpot. Over the next few days, I documented everything: oil spills, chemical leaks, Laura's orders to hide debris. One security clip hit me like a feisty guest in a tuxedo tossed my father's field journal, its one leather filled with his bird sketches, like trash. That journal was my last tie to him, and this stranger treated it as a coaster. This fight wasn't just about property, it was personal. Thursday, Laura showed me her grand plan: a $2.5 million sale of Serenity Shores properties to a developer, set for Friday. My cabin was the centerpiece. "This is bigger than you, Ethan," she said, oblivious to the contaminated water outside. I saw my opening. Her greed had blinded her to the environmental disaster she'd created, just like in Minnesota. Friday morning, Laura's investors arrived in flashy cars, their business attire too perfect, like actors in a play. She turned the platform into an event space with white tablecloths and a stage for her pitch. She texted me to join the ownership transfer ceremony, thinking I was her junior partner. But I was ready. Thursday night, I drafted a complaint to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, attaching photos, water test results, and Laura's recorded admissions. I also sent it to Deputy Carter and the sheriff's office. A state inspector was already scheduled for a routine lake check that morning, and my evidence would make it anything but routine. At 10:45, as Laura handed out fake contracts, I hit send on my complaint, requesting an emergency response. From Margaret's cabin, I watched through binoculars as a state boat approached. Laura didn't notice until the inspector docked. Her confident facade cracked as the official began documenting oil slicks, chemical spills, and dead fish. "We have excellent regulatory relationships," she stammered, but the inspector wasn't buying it. Her investors slipped away, their retreat too smooth to be coincidence. Deputy Carter arrived, piecing together Laura's lies. Laura turned to me, desperate. "Tell them you approve this, Ethan." I stared her down. "I'd rather drown in this lake." I showed her my phone, dozens of videos, photos, recordings. "Every lie, every violation, Laura. You taught me to always have backup." Her face went ashen. "You recorded me," she whispered, her empire crumbling. The inspector confirmed violations, calling in hazmat crews. Laura's platform, her literal and figurative stage, was sinking. She tried blaming me, claiming I'd sabotaged her legitimate business, but Deputy Carter had seen my deed. "Ethan owns this property," he said. "You've been operating illegally." Handcuffed, Laura stumbled, her confidence gone. "This isn't over," she screamed as they led her away. "You've ruined something beautiful." I looked at the polluted water. "No, Laura. You did that. I just made sure everyone saw." The cleanup took a month and $25,000, mostly covered by an environmental fund. Laura faced charges of fraud, forgery, environmental crimes, and racketeering, earning 5 years in prison. Her fake HOA was dissolved, and her assets seized. Margaret and I formed a neighborhood watch, but 2 months later, she brought me a flyer for Northwoods Property Solutions in a nearby town. Same logo, same scam, new face. The war wasn't over. I stripped my cabin of Laura's touches, mounting a sign, "Private cabin, no HOA, no rentals, no nonsense." Serenity Shores is peaceful again, but I'm sharing my story with other lake communities. Laura's biggest mistake: thinking our lake was for sale. Some things peace, home, memories are worth fighting for, and I never stop.